Aloha everyone, my name is Cap. I do developer relations at Sanity. So this is actually video number 3 of a mini course that we're doing on YouTube on this guide that I actually wrote. So it is build your first blog using React. So our front end is going to be React, our content is going to be managed using Sanity, and it will all be styled using Tailwind. In video number 1, we set up our React app and our Sanity project, and we connected the two. Part 2 was setting up our routing. And video 3 is going to be setting up our components and making them have the functionality that we need. It's going to kind of look not the prettiest right now because we're going to worry about styling in the next video. But yeah, let's get started. All right, so here is our project. In video 1 and 2, we have done all the setting up, connecting the two, and getting our routing set up. So that's where we're at this point. If you want to catch up, make sure to go check out those other 2 videos. So I do have my app running on localhost 3000. And here's what our first component that we're going to be setting up the functionality for AllPosts looks like. So AllPost page, it's all working, it all looks good. But let's make this have the proper functionality that we need. Again, it's not going to be the prettiest right now, but that's okay. That's for the next video. All right, so to get started, we want to set up our state. So in here we have the return, just an H2. Let's bring in right here, use state or use effect and use state. And then here, our state, we're going to name it. Let's do all post data and set all posts. So if you have worked with React hooks, this is the way to set state. So we're going to do use state and set it right now to null. If we had a value in there, or if we had something like an empty array, that's where our state would have initially start at. So in React, the way we are going to go fetch our data is we're going to use the use effect that we actually brought in. So if we type in use effect, and then in here, we're going to do an arrow function, open that up. So in here, we're actually going to be using the Sanity client that we set up in video number 1. I don't know if you remember this, but we set it to Sanity client. So we're just going to use that word to bring it in, and let's go import it. So import Sanity client from, and we're going to go to that path. And now we have imported the Sanity client. So now we can use it in here. So the first thing we want to do in the use effect is use our Sanity client and fetch for our data. So here's where the GROQ is going to come in. So once we fetch our data, to write a GROQ query, it's going to look something like this. It's going to look something like this. All right, so we're going to look for the type. Now that asterisk is saying all. So all that have a type equal to post. So in our Sanity Studio, we have set our blog post to be post. That's their type. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to open that up. We're going to query for the title, the slug, the main image, and within the main image, we actually want to find the asset and the ID and the URL of that image. So by doing this command, by doing this query, we are looking for all of the types that are post, bringing in the title, the slug, and the main image, and that's what we're gonna display on our page. Now remember, this is the AllPosts page, and so it's just gonna be a little like tile of information. Once we click in, that's when we're gonna look at the body of the blog post and other things. But just for the card, we just want the title, slug, main image. So this is how we have queried for our data. Now, once we have that all set up, we're going to do a dot then for that data and arrow function set, and we did set all posts. And then if there's any errors, we'll just have the error be consoled. So catch any errors right there. So yeah, that's what our GROQ query is going to look like. That's how our use effect is going to look like. And that's how our fetch will look like for the data. Now, to make sure it stops, we're just going to put an empty array right there, just so we can make sure that it doesn't continue running. Now, I know that's a lot of information, but just to recap, we've brought in useEffect and useState. Our useState was set up at the top using AllPost data and setPost data. The useEffect used the Sanity client to fetch all of our data using a GROQ query. And then we set all of our data to set AllPosts, so setting our state. And then if we have any errors, catch all those errors, ending it with that empty array. All right, so that is the top part of our component. All right, so in the return of our component, our AllPost component, what we want to do is we want to display the information that we just fetched for. So to do that, let's open up a div, and in here, let's do an h2 of blog post. And then we'll do an h3 of, I did welcome to my blog post page. Cool. And then in here, we're going to show into each card. So we're going to have the blog post title and the main image. And we also want to set up that if we click on it, it goes to the slug of that blog post. So let's open up some JSX. We'll do AllPost data. And here we're going to map over AllPost data. Now, as we map over it, we want to make sure, let me open this up, and here we go. Okay, so what we're doing here is we are mapping over all of the data that we're pulling in from this fetch. So that's what we're doing here. We're getting the AllPost data that we set here, that's where that was set, and mapping over all of it. So we're going to do, and this that I'm typing is part of React Router DOM. We do need to import it at the top of this file, but for now, let's just type out. So what we're doing is when you click on the card on the main post page, you're linking to the slug or the OnePost component. So link, we're going to link to the / plus the post.slug.current. We're bringing in this parameter, this post, bringing in the slug, and the current slug that we're clicking on is going to be the one that it goes to. Now, before I move on, let's just recap on what is happening here. So if we go to app.js, here we did the / and the slug. So it's going to fill the slug in here and take us to the proper single blog post that we click on. That way we don't have to have a component for each blog post. We just go to the particular one that we're clicking on. So let's make a key is equal to, I did post.slug.current and close that up. And in here, this is where we're going to, here we're going to make all the data for the card. So we're going to bring in an image. Now the source is not going to be a URL. It's going to actually be the image that we pulled in from the top, this main image. So we're going to do post.mainimage.asset.url. So we're just going down this main image asset URL. That's what we want displayed here. We'll do an alt of main hero image for blog post and end that off. And then we're also going to do a span for the h2. And here we will do post.title. All right, so it looks like this is ready to go. The last thing we need to do is import this link. So at the very top, we're going to do import link. And we've already imported this dependency from React Router DOM. We did this in video number 2. So if not, npm install, and then this is going to be the name of the package. All right, so let's pull in our application. So it looks like our H2 and our H3 are working, but our post title and image are not showing up because we don't have anything in our studio. So let's go add stuff to our studio. So localhost 3333, I already have the studio running. To do so, make sure you do Sanity Start in your Sanity Studio folder. So we're going to do, you can click on post or we can click on this create new document. I'm going to click on that. we're going to create a new post. Title, my very first blog post. We'll do a slug of first blog post. Author, we actually need to go create our author in this document type, but we'll do that in a second. All right, and then main image. I've already downloaded a image from Unsplash, so we're going to upload it. We'll go to downloads right there, and it is downloaded. Okay, this is my favorite leaf in the whole wide world. I know, yeah, but it's the Monstera leaf. I also have a necklace for it, so that's why I chose this one. So yeah, main image is good. We can do body. We'll do, this is my first blog post. Hope you all like it. And then we'll do an old-fashioned smiley face because, yeah, cool. And that's all we need to do right now. Let's go create our author. So we'll publish that just so we can keep it going. Author, we'll do Kapehe. Okay, and then let's do an image in here. Upload. There's that. Open that up. That's me. And then bio, DevRel at Sanity. Cool. Publish. Now that we have the author published, we can actually add it to our post. So we're going to go in here, do this drop down, and there I am. Cool. All right, so let's publish that. And if it is all working correctly, it should show up kind of in a wonky way because we don't really have it styled pretty. Let's refresh. And there it is. It's giant. But that's our image, and our title is right there. And it's clickable because we've made it that way. If we click onto it, it will take us to the slug of that blog post. So remember, first blog post, we did that slug. So when we clicked on it, it took us here. The reason why it says this page will have one blog post is because the only data we have in our OnePost component is this H2. So right now, everything is working great. So yeah, let's continue on to our next one. So next component, let's work with our OnePost. So AllPost is done. Really quick recap. We set our state, use effect to fetch our data using a Sanity client and GROQ. This is querying for all types that are post and bringing in that information. Then we set our data, and down here in the return, we are creating cards. Now we're going to make it look nice in the next video, but we're just doing functionality here. So let's move on, and let me get rid of these just so there's not a lot going on. But here's our OnePost page. All right, so let's work on our OnePost. We already know we're going to need state, so we'll just name it post data, and set post data. We'll set that equal to, and we haven't pulled this in yet, but use state, and we'll set that to null right now. Let's bring that in just so it doesn't get mad at us. And I know we're going to use effect, so we'll just bring that in as well. And use state. Okay, so that's all set up for us. Let's bring this down a little bit. Okay, so we know we're going to need the use effect to go help us fetch our data. So let's do use effect. Let's do an arrow function. Open that up. Now let's pull in the same thing that we did for AllPost, the Sanity client from client. And I like to end my paths with .js or whatever is needed. And then let's do Sanity client .fetch and open that up. Cool. In here is going to be our GROQ query. Same thing as last time. We're just going to fill that out here. So let's do, and I'm just looking at my notes, all of the slug.current that's equal to the slug that we are clicking on. So this one's going to be much different okay, than the last one. This one, we're just trying to find all the posts, but this one, we need to look for just the current slug that we've clicked on. This is making it so we don't have to create a component for every single blog post. We just create one that we have mapped over in this component. So we're mapping over all of our blog posts, clicking into the current slug or whichever one, and then it goes to, and here's the GROQ query for slug.current. So whichever one was clicked on, this is how we're going to pull that data in. We're going to want to bring in the title, the slug. Let's pull in the main image, and let's do asset, just like our other one, our other GROQ query we did, URL. Yep, perfect. And then down here, we're also going to be grabbing the body, so that's a little more than last. And we're going to use an alias kind of for the author name and author image, just so we can make sure we get the correct image out and we're not getting like images kind of confused or names kind of confused, title, whatever it may be. So for our author information, name and author image, that's what we're naming it. And this can be anything you want. I could do author name, I could do author image, I could do image, but whatever it is, that's up to you. All right, so our GROQ query is all set up. That's it. Very similar to the last one. The main difference here is making sure we're only showing the current slug that is bringing us to this component. We don't want to display anything else. All right. Now, in order to pull out the proper information from the URL, there is a React hook called use params that we're actually going to use. So we're going to set slug to use params and net off. We got to also bring it in. So this comes from React Router DOM. So import use params from React Router DOM. Cool. So in order to pull out the particular information that we need to make sure we are using params to allow React to understand, hey, we're looking at a URL, pull out the correct information that you need. So we're setting our slug, and we're going to come down here and use that right here. So it knows, hey, we're looking at a slug, and this is going to help with our routing. So we got to make sure we have that. Then down here, we'll do a dot then, same thing as last time. We'll set the data. We're going to do set post data, and we want it to just do the first thing that comes out, not more. And then the dot catch will just be a console dot error. Let's get rid of this because it's kind of mad. And that is it. And we want it to only run once after it's gotten that information. So rather than doing an empty array, we're going to do just the slug. All right, that's a lot of information, but let's kind of go over it one more time. So here we are setting our state. We are using useEffect to grab data from our Sanity client. So we're going to fetch for the current slug, grabbing the title, slug, main image, stuff in the main image, like asset, ID, URL. And we're also adding in the body and the author information. And we've named it name and author image. And then we set that data in the dot then and catch if there's any errors. Cool. So that is it for that. Now, the last thing we want to do is if there is a delay and we want to have a loading page, or if the internet is slow or whatever it may be, let's do a if no post data, then let's return a div that says loading. And that's it, just in case. All right, so it looks good. And we've imported everything we need so far. Now let's do our return. This is where we're going to make all of our data kind of come in. And we're going to use all this data that we've already fetched for. So down here in the return, let's get rid of this H2 we have. Open that up and create the main div. Now in our main div, we're going to have, an H2, and this will be the post data title. So whatever title we are looking at for the particular slug that we have navigated to, that's what's going to show right there. Now we're going to have the div. We're going to have an image. Source is going to be a little bit different in this component. All right, so in our last one, remember source was post.mainimage.asset.url. So we're pulling in that URL from the GROQ query that we did. A different way to do it, and we're showing both ways just so we can, let me close that off, just so we can have both examples so you can use either way. So it is a Sanity tool called image URL that we're going to be using, and let's bring that in. So we're going to control tilde. Let's add a terminal here, and we're going to do npm install --save at sanity/image URL. Enter. Cool. So that's coming in. Let's go to the top and let's import that just so we can have it ready. And we'll call it image URL builder from, it's going to be at sanity and not client, but image URL. And that's still importing. And one thing that we do need to do is we're going to create a image URL builder. And in here, we're going to pull in the Sanity client and a function that we'll call URL for. In here, we're going to have the source, open that up, and we're going to return builder.image and then the source of that image. All right, so what we're doing here is we're kind of setting up for that URL, that image URL package to be usable. Now, there's a lot of extra steps, but it will make things a little bit easier when you do bring lots of images in. So this is us getting ready to use that. So it looks like it has been imported. And if we come down here to our source, we're going to do URL for, open that up, and we'll do post data.author image. We're going to give it a width of 100 just so it's not so giant, and it's going to have its URL. Cool. Then we got to give it an alt. That's a long line, so that's why we open that up. Author is cap. And I'm going to just hard code that in because this is my blog. And so it's always going to be author is cap. And that's it for our image for our author. Now, notice that I did a width and I was able to set that. If I tried to go set a width over here, it'd be a little bit different, but the URL, the image URL package that we installed actually allows us to chain on a whole bunch of stuff. It's making for an easier way to kind of manipulate and edit our images. So that's why this package is really great to have. A little bit of setup at the beginning, but once you do get it set up, there's awesome things that you can add to it. Under here, we're going to do an H4, and it's going to be post data.name. Now remember, name is author name. So that's where my name is going to go. So it should say Kapehe. And that is it for our author cards. So that's what this div is for. Let's actually go ahead and wrap this whole part in a div because we want to make sure that is separate from the body of our blog post. Now let's create under there image. Our source is going to be, now remember we have URL for, so we're going to want to use that. So URL for, open this up and we're going to do post data and we're going to do main image right here. Now remember, we can set a width because our last width on our AllPosts page is giant. So now we're making it smaller so it's not like out of control. And there you go. We'll do an alt equal to main image of post. Yeah. Okay. Close that off. And we'll also create a div here. And here's where we're going to have the body of our blog post. Now we're going to pull in another package. It's called block content to React. Let me actually pull that up. So if we go to Sanity, the doc, so block content, this is how we're going to structure our portable text. So there are different ways to pull it in. You can do it for React, Vue, HTML, hypertext. We're going to be using the React one. And let's pull it in. So let's get rid of that. This is going to allow us to get all of the text that is in our body and display it rather than having each individual piece. Because remember, the body can have images, YouTube embed, all that kind of stuff. We want to make sure we get all that content and display it properly. So let's import. Oh, let's actually run this first. So npm install -- save, and it's called block content to React. Okay, so we'll let that run. While it's running, let's bring in import, and we'll do block content from @sanity / block content to, not hyperscript, to React. Cool. Okay, so that is all set up. Now let's go ahead and use it. So we come back down here to this div that we created. So we're going to open this up, block content, and within this, let's actually close it off so we don't have to look at that red. And here we're going to do blocks are equal to post data dot body. So that's our entire body. So everything that's in the body of, let me show you, in our post, click in here, anything that is within this body. So if we had an image in there, if we had, let's actually insert an image. And we'll just do the monstera leaf one, just so we have one in there and we can kind of see. All right, so that's in there. Awesome. This is my very first blog post. Hope you all like it. Cool. We'll publish that so that once we have that going, we can see that block content actually is really awesome. So we'll come back here. Now we're going to need to bring in our project ID, and that is going to be equal to the sanity client.client config.project ID. Cool. And then we're also going to do the data set, and we're just kind of bringing in that same information we had in that client.js file. So sanity client.client config.dataset. Cool. Now let's just double check. Project ID, dataset. Cool. That is all done. Now we saved that, and I think we're done. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what it looks like. Everything has been imported. We have our URL4 stuff. OnePost, we've set our data. We're using the use param so we can pull out that information for the URL that we need. We're fetching for our data, slug current, pulling out the information that we want, and set our data. If there's not a blog post, we're going to have a loading page. But if there is, we're going to have post data.title, so the title of the post. We're going to have the author card. We're going to have the image, the main image of the post, and then the block content. So let's see how that looks. All right, so I'm going to pull this over. Welcome to my blog post page, yada, yada. This thing is giant. Let's go. And remember, all this is clickable, but I'm just going to make sure we see our title. So I'm going to click on that. And if it all works properly, we should see all that information. And it does. Okay, so it's not pretty because we haven't styled it, but all of it is functioning. So my very first blog post, title, we have our author, image, and name. We have the main image right here, and then we have the image from the blog post. This is my very first blog post. Hope you like it. Perfect. It has the right slug. Everything's working. Cool. So we've set the width for this image and this image, not for this one. We will take care of that in the styling video. But yeah, everything's working correctly. And let's actually very quickly add another blog post. We'll do localhost 3333. Let's add another one, another post. We'll do this works and it's great. And we'll do it is great. The author, we will do me. And let's actually add a main image. My favorite flower is plumeria. So I'm going to download a plumeria picture real quick. Let's upload that. So I just did that. This is the plumeria flower. And cool, that's done. And we'll say my favorite flower is the plumeria flower. Cool. Let's publish that. All right, so it's published. Now let's go back to our React, our home page. And if this is all working correctly, then it's going to be mapping over. Let's see. So that might be the plumeria page. Yeah, that totally is. Because that's not the monstera leaf. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's all working. Now let's click on this works and it's great. That's our second one that we added. Click on that. And it worked. Okay, so now all of our functionality is set up. We can quickly go into our Sanity Studio, add as many things as we want. And because we've set up this map and we're displaying our information for a particular blog post, when we click into a particular slug, we are making it so our content management is actually really great. So all the functionality is set up. We use GROQ. I will go back to the code. We use GROQ to query for our data. Let me go. We use GROQ in both of these. We used block content for our body, and it's all working great. So if we look at it one more time, I mean, it is great. It is the slug. So everything's good. Everything's working fantastic. So I hope you really liked this video, and we have all the functionality set up. We have styling left to do. And once that's done, once the styling is set up, and we're going to set up the styling so that as we add posts, it stays looking nice. We're going to be using Tailwind, and I'm super excited for that one because Tailwind is awesome, and we want to make sure our blog looks good and we can navigate around easily because that image is way too big on our first page. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.